Once an idea is in the air, it's almost impossible to imagine its landing, an end to it. I think she must have noticed this, and with equal kindness, she said, "If you need a few extra minutes, Jeff, no problem." I channeled Bill in that moment. I brandished my 16-gigabyte flash drive and announced that I could not possibly force all that I wanted to say onto this. Juliet, Dustin, and Pam joined Ruth, all now equally concerned that I might just have too much to say. I have so much to say, but I will be watching for Ruth to give me the signal, as I'm sure many times she must have done for Bill. I will miss hearing Bill talk. As I drove away from the house last night, 501 Mississippi, I could almost feel the silence oozing from the joints of the rock walls. Bill could talk about so many things. Bill's talk, however, was never idle. Bill spoke of things that mattered. People and the world mattered to Bill in ways that don't seem to matter to so many people, at least in the academic circles where I travel, where it seems that what matters is so increasingly remote from what matters to most people. Bill often reminded me of this, often equally making me anxious about it, but always to great end. I will miss feeling Bill's strong values, especially in a world where I often feel the absence of strong commitments to what matters most. One always knew what Bill valued. You could feel it, not just in the clarity of his thinking, but in the force with which he expressed deeply held convictions about science, about politics, about discovery. People and things in our world did not just matter for Bill. They filled him up to the brim, boiled over, and left him selfless, giving to everyone around him unbound creative energy and ideas. Bill also knew how to find himself with those to whom things mattered, which made the talk about what mattered all the more interesting, compelling, and significant. With masons and artists and poets, filmmakers, philosophers and physicists, mathematicians and physicians. And because Bill never confused wisdom with age, or training, or credentials, or university degrees, he was always surrounded by those to whom things and people mattered most. For Bill, relationships mattered, loyalty mattered, and as a measure of the importance of relationships to Bill, there are people in this room today from all over the country joining in a celebration of Bill's time with us. What mattered most to Bill was to be surrounded by those to whom the world and people mattered. Two people mattered most to Bill: his wonderfully interesting, intelligent, loyal, and beautiful Ruth, and his beautiful, piquant, charming, talented, and wonderfully interesting daughter, Juliet. Ruth, don't worry yet. I cut the next 3 pages on Aristotle's Ethics and longer discussion of phronesis, but I'm feeling some anxiety right now, I must confess, because I think Bill would find this part of this interesting. Forget it. I will miss Bill's penetrating curiosity. In some way, it was Bill, curiosity. Bill was not just filled with curiosity, however. It was focused, intense, and without end. I'm not sure there is adequate language for it, and I'm almost certain one gets it inside early in life, in this case from our mutually shared and much beloved grandmother, and for Bill from his absolutely unique and interesting mother, Mabel. There was something about Bill's attention to and interest in the world and people, and there are many in this room who know this better than I, because you lived it with him and through him. And I let Bill know, not long before he died, that it was something I most valued in him, and that I was certain it was something he was leaving to the world for generations to come. There was nothing Bill could not look into and find something of interest, and most often of importance. Bill moved with ease among the sciences and mathematics, physics, chemistry, and biology. His curiosity, however, was not ordinary. Like his talk, it wasn't idle. It had a depth to it. It was aimed at the essence of things. It was about mastery. Mastery may, I think, describe it best. His curiosity took him to places, always toward a clear and most often value-driven goal. But without doubt, always toward mastery. And it was also in this way that Bill did not suffer fools lightly. If you went on the curiosity train with Bill, he expected you to reach with him toward mastery. As a young child, probably around the age of 5 or 6, he taught me how to play chess. And while I never mastered the game like Bill, I learned from Bill more than chess. I learned to persist, to be comfortable with failure, to play the game, and that losing served a purpose. And as a young boy on the Kansas prairie, Bill taught me the constellations. Last night, after arriving in Kansas, I drove to a place west of Lawrence. Seems like I had to drive much further west than when I lived here in the 70s, so it took me some time, where I could see and feel the fullness of the night sky. I stood against the car as I named the constellations, and I thanked Bill. I remember once asking Bill why he'd decided to leave Washington, D.C. It seemed like a place of great opportunity for him. He abruptly and quickly redressed me. I hate this place. He then went on in some great detail to explain why. As I reflected back on that moment with Bill and his return to Lawrence, I recalled Salman Rushdie's essay on the Wizard of Oz. At the age of 10, Rushdie had written a story over the rainbow about a colorful fantasy world. Rushdie had, as a young boy in Mumbai, seen the film scores of times, and later in his life returned to comment on the story. And for him, The Wizard of Oz is more than a children's film. It is more than a fantasy. It is a story about the inadequacy of adults. It is a story about what happens when the weakness of grown-ups force children to take control of their own destinies. Rushdie also rejects the notion that it is about a fantasy escape from reality, ending with a comforting return to home, sweet home. Rushdie imagines that the film is about exile, that there's no such place like home. The only home is the one we make for ourselves, in exile. I disagree with Rushdie's understanding of the story, and it seems to somehow encapsulate Bill's return to Lawrence. Despite all the glitz, the glamour, and magic of Oz, it is not where Dorothy wants to be. Despite being surrounded by wonder and beauty over the rainbow, she longs for her family. Dorothy believed that everything would be perfect over the rainbow, that her troubles would melt like lemon drops. Yet it is in Oz where she finds herself deeply unfulfilled and yearns to return to Kansas. Truth and happiness are not to be found in distant and exotic lands or in the things this world promises that would appear on, or in the things of this world that appear on the outside to promise something but leave us empty and shallow on the inside. While Dorothy suffered greatly in leaving her new friends, not the Emerald City, she suffered most in being away from the people she most loved and most loved her back in Kansas. Rushdie did not only get it wrong, he got it absolutely wrong. I truly believe there is no place like home. Only the home the Wizard of Oz asks us to imagine is not a place, but being with those to whom the world and people matter. Thanks, Bill, for sharing your life with us. Thanks for helping us know what matters most. And thank you, Ruth and Juliet, for sharing the journey with Bill and for caring for my cousin over his journey. Thank you.
I want to read a tribute from Audrey Klopper, who could not be here. Dear Ruth, my family loved Bill. Since my boys were young, we would run into him when we came to town, and he would talk with them, listen to them, take an interest in their life. Lycan loved his sense of humor, his puns. Journey liked his pyramid on your front porch. Bill loaned physics books to Mountain and helped to inspire him in ways that were beyond my own comprehension. For this I am grateful, but my sense of gratitude surpasses the intellectual mentorship he provided. Bill had a beautiful heart. I believe he was one of the kindest men in town. Whenever I saw him at the co-op, I knew it would be a long time till I left the store. But I was fine with this, for he had so much to share, so much brilliance shining within and through him. My heart goes out to you, Ruth, and to Juliet. I know he loved you both very deeply. We will miss this wonderful man. Love, Audrey. We have a very few minutes for if someone else wants to share. I think you said you wanted to. Go ahead.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Good morning or good afternoon to everybody. My name is Reza Shams. I'm from Iran. I met Bill a few years ago through a friend of mine, and I had an opportunity to see him a few times. Every time I met him, he talked about Omar Khayyam, because I'm from Iran, and he loved Omar Khayyam apparently. I knew he loved physics. A few months ago, when he was relatively sick, I saw him in a coffee shop, and I just have returned from Iran, my home country. Over there, I heard a joke that was made on second law of Newton. I thought, oh, I'll share that joke with him, because he's a physicist, he may appreciate it, or he may not. The joke, basically, the Iranians have interpreted the second law of Newton, for those of you not remember, is that the energy does not disappear, it just changes its form. So Iranians have interpreted it that love of man doesn't disappear, it goes from one woman to the next. Well, Bill, being sick, still loved quite a bit, and he looked at me, he said, I don't expect nothing less from Iranian, the people of Omar Khayyam.
Is there anyone else? Do we have a mic? Okay. Here, and then she wants to. Okay, so you'll be next. Okay.
Thank you. I'm Karen Miriam Goldberg, and this is a poem for Bill. We had a great deal of experience with Bill in our household because he was always coming over to hang out with Ken. Brought Juliet many, many times, and she and my daughter had many anime marathons as they grew up. And all of my children were very affected by Bill's life and his death. And I did want to pass on that my son Daniel said that one of the main reasons he became a scientist was because Bill's passion for science made it seem like the most interesting thing in the world. And this poem is called Ponderer of Ponderances for Bill. Raconteur of raconteurs, astronomer of the coffee grounds, wizard of the center table, potter to the stars, scientific boy genius in the body of an old man, speeding hedge apple to the windshield of complicity, treader of the library's holdings most likely to be misfiled backwards on a bottom shelf, lingerer supreme at the end of parties, shooting star across the living room, emperor of all time of the kitchen counter, ecstatic heaven-dwelling booster of the dancing daughter, better than Martha Stewart made centerpiece of the coffee clutch, gossip filterer of most chiming surprises right here in River City, advancer of the questions, answerer of the conjunctions between a 1967 Topeka conversation in a gas station and Mars Land Rover evolution 40 years from now. Rustler of the big conversation that curves into quantum physics and debates on the longest lasting sandals, constellation curio of rooftops and barbecues involving homemade fireworks and piles of telescopes, anthropologist from Mars who made us believe we are and have always been Martians, human developer of the darkroom you didn't know was in your basement, formulator of the life-saving formulas, chess deviant of the late afternoon, prover of how you don't have to be a rocket scientist, but it helps if you are. Lover of stories told in canoes on dance floors and over tofu gumbo, sling carrier of the glorious offspring, romancer and lucky recipient of Days and Nights with Ruth, element reader of the waltzing prairie, lord of the winged tale involving a road not on any maps, groom of gratitude, devotee of the three-legged family, distractor of anything linear, expected, or deadlined, night sky dreamer of the daring.
Hi, I'm Sharon Dwyer. I met Bill about 69 or 70 at Jane's Table. Jane's Table in the student union was well, at the time we thought we were having lunch, but it was really kind of a social experiment that lasted for 2 or 3 decades. And much of what went on there was analysis of human behavior, anyone's except our own. And so I think it was really fodder for Bill's dissertation later, but many people would stop by Jane's Table every day. It was hard to hold a job if you were a regular at Jane's Table because you never knew what might happen. Lunch could last all day. Lunch could lead to Bill going off to work on the geodesic dome he was building on Ohio Street, or Bill going off to make a musical instrument, or going off to make some jewelry. He came back one day with rings for Jane and me that he made the night before. It could be anything, and you might wander off with him. And so it could become a lifestyle. But Bill was a regular at Jane's Table. Jane Van Meter, who those who didn't know her so well called the Blue Lady, many of you may remember her, was a very beautiful, sparkling matriarch to some of us in those days. And Bill was among her dear friends, as was I. And of course, Bill had many dear friends, as you all know, because each of you was his best friend. So we know how he was about meeting people and loving people and being interested in them. And he was, of course, quite a raconteur in those days as well, and sort of turned everything into an anthropological study, or a story about someone he knew, or a story about Micronesia, or, you know, any of the places that he had hung out. So that was an example of many coffee clatches that I know Bill has been a part of over the years, and still was, and I'm sure still continues to be. And we love him. Thank you.
You want to be next? Yeah.
I'll just stand here. I'm Leanne, and I live across the street. I did for 20 years. Ruth and Julietta Hill. And I used to make pancakes on Sunday morning and hang out. And Aki and Juliette grew up together. And Bill married me to, he was my, he married me. He was an amazing part of my life for most of it. And I'm going to miss him terribly. And I love you guys. Thank you for being my family.
I can't see real well, so if you want to say something, pop up. Okay.
My name is Sven Ahlstrom, and I met Bill in Prima Taza on my return in 2002 after 21 years in Colorado. And the quote that most reminds me of this started Bill, I would not have known of except for the late Mortimer Adler in Aspen. And I think Bill falls into this category of this quote. The mysterious is the source of all art and science. Albert Einstein.
We have time for a couple more.
Hey, let me say something.
Okay.
My name's Tony Backus. Bill hosted me when I went to Washington, D.C. for an interview for a State Department job. And he took care of me for about 4 days, took me out to the best Ethiopian restaurants. It was clear he didn't like Washington. Even though the work he was doing was interesting, he just wasn't going to stay there. Just like Shelley Miller. He couldn't go to that world. It was too dirty. And I came back to I've done all the background work, I was set to go. There was one final interview with the FBI. It was a tour of Shakespeare in Poland. They asked me if I'd ever done drugs. I figured, well, better admit something. So, yeah, in high school, we smoked a little dope. Kind of like Bill Clinton, right? Of course I failed. Didn't make the interview, didn't get the job. I come back, press call, and tell Bill what had happened. He said, you idiot. These people don't want the truth. They want plausible deniability. I just thought that shit that is wisdom in that way too. Because the truth is for friends.
You know you sounded just like him when you said that. Yes.
I just think someone needs to mention that Bill, as a rocket scientist, knows that the best way to get around is on a bicycle.
I know this is not Bill-like, but we have to be out of here by 1:30. So can we get the trio back up here again? Where did they go? There they are. And maybe one more person could speak while they're coming up. Okay.
My name is Gus Zaraga. I used to live in Lawrence. And Bill and a very little Juliet and Ruth came out to visit me in California about 20 years ago. Bill had learned at that point that the operation on his cancer had been botched, it had metastasized, and things looked grim. And he told me then he hoped he lived long enough to see Juliet graduate. And when I heard the news, when Ruth called, I thought, he did. She made it, she graduated in May, and he left us for a time anyway in June.
Thank you. Again, I want to say, Ruth and Juliet, really thank each one of you for coming and for everyone who's contributed with flowers, food, your presence, music, speech, to make this a wonderful afternoon. And they would like you to join them in the gallery for refreshments. So, peace be with you all.
Oh, when the saints go marching in, oh Lord, I want to be in that number. When the saints go marching in.
Some audio issues, but you know, it's okay.
You got your tripod, that's good. So, yeah.
Well, you have a tripod.
Yeah.